House Bill 1950, which provides for an impact fee on unconventional gas wells, is now the law of the land in Pennsylvania. This much talked about bill received a yes vote in the House from State Representative Matt Gabler, who's here to talk about the reasons for that vote. Representative, give us an overall view of the bill and why you cast that vote.
Well, this bill is really the first time we've had an opportunity to get a bill on the governor's desk that will actually achieve what the people of Pennsylvania have been asking for when it comes to Marcellus Shale drilling. First and foremost, it puts money back into local communities that are feeling the impact of Marcellus Shale drilling. The impacts have been in some ways good with job creations and the ability to have people getting to work. But there are impacts on local infrastructure, there are impacts on local services, and the ability to make the local communities whole through the achievement of this revenue is a very good thing. In addition to that, this bill increases the environmental protections related to Marcellus Shale drilling. It increases the stream setbacks by 200%. It increases the distance from water wells by 150%. Increases the distance from buildings by 150%. It increases the rebuttable presumption, which is the liability protections that landowners will have if a drilling company is conducting operations near them. Overall, this bill, while it did have some compromise language in it, it actually is going to get something done and move the ball in the direction where Pennsylvanians want our laws to be, and for the first time since 1984 actually updates our oil and gas laws in a significant way.
Some wish this was more punitive with regard to the drilling companies. How do you answer those critics?
Well, I think it's important that we sit down and talk about what it is that we need to do to protect Pennsylvanians, and it's important that we do it in such a way that that we're not going to harm the job creators and harm the industry that really has been significantly improving Pennsylvania's economy. The fact of the matter is, we could sit here all day and talk about taxes, fees, or regulations that would completely throw the industry out of the state. But at the end of the day, I think that would be very bad for us, both from a jobs perspective as well as an energy perspective. The fact that we've seen the price of natural gas come down for our seniors, for all of our families who are trying to heat their homes, people on fixed incomes, natural gas prices are at all-time lows, and it's because we are producing it locally and here. So to scare all that away, we'd be giving up an awful lot. So to be here and actually put together a bill that does do what Pennsylvanians want, but is not intended to punish the industry, but rather just to regulate them in an appropriate manner, it's the right thing, it's the proper thing for us to do.
The revenue generated by this, some wish it was going other places. Education, even welfare has been mentioned. You like where this revenue is going, do you not?
Well, I think it's very important that we look at where this conversation started under Governor Rendell. Governor Rendell wanted a severance tax so that Harrisburg politicians would get the money, and under his proposal, 92% of the money would go to other regions of the state, and you'd only end up with less than 10% of the money going back to local communities. Local impacts would not have been accounted for. This was about big government spenders in Harrisburg. Where we've gotten this bill to is the point where we are talking about local impacts. We can't be putting a tax or a fee on a local industry in an area, in a rural part of the state like where we're from, and then send that money to other parts of the state and expect that to be fair. It wouldn't be. So for us to try to spend this money 10 times over by sending it into completely unrelated parts of government would be very irresponsible. What we need to be talking about is an impact fee, and I'm glad we are.
Finally, speaking of local, municipal preemption, we could probably talk for a half hour on that. Boroughs, townships, and county commissioners of the state have endorsed this. How do you answer the critics regarding municipal preemption?
Well, I think it's important to point out that, for one thing, when you're talking about House Bill 1950, this bill has gone through a number of different versions. There was an initial version that the House passed back in 2011. There was then the amendments that the Senate put into it, in which case it was a completely different looking bill. And when the House and Senate couldn't come together, that generated a conference committee, or 3 senators and 3 representatives who came together and worked on compromise language. That compromise language is what was then amended into this final version of House Bill 1950, which is very different from the original version. The original version did talk about reducing the ability of municipalities to regulate oil and gas development. This bill really came to a point where the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Association of Township Supervisors, the Association of Boroughs, all endorsed this bill, because what this bill does is actually gives them more ability to regulate drilling operations than they would have had under the old Oil and Gas Act of 1984. The old Oil and Gas Act of 1984 that has been in effect for the last 28 years was very clear that municipal activities with regard to oil and gas were completely preempted. What this bill does is this gives municipalities the ability to regulate drilling the same way they regulate any other industry through zoning and through local planning laws. So the compromise language that was adopted into this bill really does hit the mark with regard to that, with regard to the municipalities and the local control. But it does get confusing when people are talking about House Bill 1950 because many people don't realize that we're talking about different language than where we started.
If you have questions on this or any other legislative topic, Representative Gabler's contact information will be on the screen in a few minutes. I'm Scott Little. Thanks for spending 5 minutes with State Representative Matt Gabler.